Every hardship has a message, but the message is not always clear in the beginning. Sometimes the lesson is patience, other times it is trust. Sometimes the lesson is learning to walk away, and sometimes it is learning to stay. There are seasons when the lesson is strength, and seasons when the lesson is softness. Allah tailors each difficulty uniquely to the soul it is meant to shape. He knows your heart more intimately than you know it yourself. He knows what experiences will bring you closer to Him, what situations will purify you, what moments will humble you, and what struggles will lift you spiritually. Nothing that happens to you is random. Nothing is without meaning. Every difficulty carries within it a divine intention. When hardship arrives, one of the first things the heart feels is resistance. You may want things to go back to the way they were. You may grieve the loss of stability, security, or familiarity, and that grief is valid. Hardship often dismantles the illusions we build around ourselves. Illusions of control, illusions of permanence, illusions of independence. We like to believe that we can manage our lives according to our plans, our timelines, our expectations. But hardship reminds us that control is ultimately not in our hands. It reminds us that everything we have can change in an instant, and the only constant is Allah. Hardship removes the veil and teaches the soul one of the most profound truths. Reliance on anything temporary will eventually lead to disappointment. Only reliance on Allah is secure. This realization is not meant to break you, it is meant to liberate you. When you release your grip from what was never meant to be held so tightly, you make space for something deeper, something freer. Hardship teaches the heart how to detach from the dunya without abandoning responsibilities. It teaches you to participate in life without losing yourself in it. It teaches you that your worth does not depend on outcomes, successes, or circumstances, but on your relationship with Allah. And it is hardship that softens the heart enough to truly understand this. It is in moments of difficulty that sincerity is tested. It is easy to worship Allah when everything is going well. It is easy to be grateful when blessings flow effortlessly. But when the heart aches, when the future feels uncertain, when every step forward feels heavy, this is where sincerity is revealed. Do you still turn to Allah with the same devotion? Do you still trust Him even when you do not understand His plan? Do you still pray, not because life is comfortable, but because you need Him? Hardship unveils the true intention of the heart, showing whether your worship is dependent on circumstances or rooted in genuine love and submission. Many people discover their deepest connection to Allah through hardship. It is in the late night tears, the whispered prayers, the desperate moments of surrender that they find a closeness to Him they never experienced before. Hardships strip away distractions, ego, and the illusions of self-sufficiency. They bring the heart to a place of vulnerability where it finally realizes that Allah has always been the only refuge. This realization transforms the soul in ways comfort never could. It deepens faith, strengthens tawakkul, and purifies intentions. It is through hardship that the soul learns what it truly means to rely on Allah. Sometimes the hardship is not what happens to you, but what happens within you. You may find yourself overwhelmed by anxiety, weighed down by sadness, or suffocated by uncertainty. These internal battles can be harder than any external challenge. Yet even these emotional struggles are opportunities for spiritual growth. They teach you compassion for others because once you've suffered, your heart becomes gentler toward those who are suffering. They teach you humility because you realize how fragile the human heart is. They teach you resilience because every time you survive a storm within yourself, you learn something new about your strength and, more importantly, about Allah's mercy. All hardships, whether external or internal, call you toward reflection. They invite you to pause and ask, what is Allah teaching me through this? What is this situation revealing about my heart? What is it preparing me for? Hardship is never just hardship, it is preparation. Allah does not allow you to face difficulty unless it will lead you to a greater blessing, a deeper understanding, or a higher spiritual state. Sometimes what you consider a setback is actually a setup for something far better. Sometimes the heartbreak you experience is clearing the space in your life for a blessing you prayed for long ago. And sometimes the delay you find so frustrating is in fact protection from something you cannot see yet. Hardship builds resilience, not just emotionally, but spiritually. Emotional resilience is the ability to feel pain without becoming defined by it. Spiritual resilience is the ability to turn to Allah despite the pain. And both types of resilience are necessary for the soul to grow. Hardship teaches you to hold your ground in faith even when everything around you feels unstable. It teaches you to trust the unseen even when the visible world disappoints you. It teaches you to hope even when circumstances are bleak. And it teaches you that despair has no place in a heart that believes in a Lord who says, "Indeed, with hardship comes ease." One of the most beautiful aspects of hardship is that it exposes the illusions we place our confidence in. Sometimes we rely too heavily on people, forgetting that people are human, limited, imperfect. Sometimes we rely too heavily on plans, forgetting that plans are fragile. Sometimes we rely too heavily on ourselves, forgetting that the human soul is not built to carry the weight of the entire world. Hardship gently removes these illusions. It brings you back to the one who never disappoints, never changes, never leaves. Hardship shifts your focus from creation to creator. And once your heart learns to rely on Allah, the entire world becomes lighter. There are difficulties that teach the soul patience, and there are difficulties that teach the soul gratitude. It may feel contradictory, but some hardships actually illuminate blessings you never noticed before. A person might lose something and suddenly realize how much they had taken for granted. They might experience illness and finally appreciate health. They might endure loneliness and discover the value of companionship. Hardship sharpens awareness, making the heart more attentive to blessings. It reawakens gratitude, a gratitude that is far deeper than the surface level appreciation felt in moments of ease. Sometimes hardships come not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to grow through them. Allah knows the capacity of your heart better than you do. He knows what you can handle, what you can overcome, and what you can transform through. Hardships shape you into someone you would never become on your own. They expand your endurance, deepen your wisdom, and refine your character. They make you more compassionate, more empathetic, more grounded. They help you understand others in ways you never could have understood without experiencing pain yourself. They make you a source of comfort to others, because those who have walked through darkness know how to guide others toward light. Many of the most beautiful souls in this world became who they are through hardship. Their gentleness was shaped through their own suffering. Their wisdom was born from their own struggles. Their kindness grew from the pain they survived. Hardship molds the heart, softening it where it needs softness and strengthening it where it needs strength. It polishes the soul the way pressure polishes a stone, turning it into something beautiful. It refines your inner world with a precision that only Allah's wisdom could orchestrate. Hardships are also invitations to connect with Allah through dua. When life is smooth, dua may become routine, but in moments of difficulty, dua becomes raw, sincere, and vulnerable. It becomes the language of the heart. It becomes the way you release what burdens you and entrust it to the one who can carry it. Through hardship, you learn that dua is not just a request for change, but a refuge, a place of comfort, a space where the soul feels seen and heard. Every dua you make in hardship carries a sincerity that is beloved to Allah, and no sincere dua is ever lost. Even if the result looks different from what you requested, it is always answered in the way that is best for you. Hardship also teaches you to slow down. When everything falls apart, you are forced to reevaluate your priorities. You begin to see what truly matters and what does not. You begin to understand that life is not about rushing to the next milestone, but about being present in your growth, your faith, and your moments with Allah. Hardship pulls you out of autopilot and awakens you to the reality that every second of life is purposeful, every breath intentional, every challenge meaningful. There are times when you ask Allah to strengthen you, and He gives you hardship to build that strength. You ask him to give you patience, and he gives you situations that require patience. You ask him for wisdom, and he gives you experiences that teach you wisdom. Hardship is often the hidden answer to your prayers. And because Allah knows you better than you know yourself, he answers your prayers in ways that prepare your soul for what it is destined for. Hardship is not linear. Some days you feel strong and grounded. Other days you feel overwhelmed. This fluctuation does not mean your faith is weak. It means you are human. Hardship is not meant to make you perfect, but to make you real, to help you develop a relationship with Allah that is sincere, raw, and honest. A relationship where you turn to him not only in the polished moments, but also in the moments when your heart feels messy and fragile. Hardships do not define you. How you respond to them does. And when you respond with reliance, trust, and a sincere heart, the hardship becomes a tool of transformation. It becomes a bridge that leads you closer to Allah, closer to your true self, closer to the person you are meant to become. Hardships shape your destiny in ways you will only fully understand when you look back and realize that the things you thought were breaking, you were actually building you into someone stronger, wiser, and more spiritually grounded. Patience is not simply a virtue you practice during difficulty. It is a transformative force that reshapes the heart from within. Every moment of waiting, every breath held between fear and hope, every quiet surrender deepens the soul in ways you may not realize while you are going through it. What difficulty begins, patience completes. It is patience that takes the raw pain of a situation and turns it into something meaningful, something that brings you closer to Allah, something that elevates your soul rather than crushing it. The transformation that occurs through patience is subtle, tender, and often invisible at first. But with time, you begin to notice that you are no longer who you used to be. Your heart becomes more aware, more anchored, more trusting, and more resilient. The same circumstances that once overwhelmed you now draw you deeper into reliance on Allah. The same fears that once controlled you now soften into surrender. Patience is the quiet sculptor that molds the soul into something beautiful, something steady, something aligned with the divine. One of the most profound transformations patience creates is the ability to detach, not detachment from life, nor from responsibilities, nor from people you love, but from the illusions that pull you away from Allah. Difficult situations reveal how tightly you hold on to things that are temporary. They show you the expectations you cling to, the outcomes you fear losing, the attachments that weaken your heart by depending too heavily on creation rather than the Creator. Through patience, you begin to understand that nothing in this world is meant to remain fixed. Everything changes, everything shifts, everything passes through your hands like sand. When hardship forces you to loosen your grip on what was never meant to be permanent, your heart finds a freedom it never knew it needed. It begins to hold the world lightly, to walk through life with open hands, to trust that whatever leaves you was not meant for your journey, and whatever stays is by the grace and wisdom of Allah. This kind of detachment does not make the heart cold. It purifies it. It makes you love more sincerely, without expectation of return. It makes you give more freely, without fear of loss. It makes you appreciate blessings without becoming dependent on them. You begin to see everything as a temporary gift entrusted to you. You care, but you do not cling. You invest, but you do not idolize. You love, but you do not lose yourself in the love. Detachment allows the heart to remain whole even when life shifts around you. And patience is the spiritual training that teaches you this balance. Patience also teaches humility. When you face hardship, you come face to face with the limits of your own strength. There are moments when you simply do not have the answers. Moments when you do not know how to fix what is broken. Moments when the pain is louder than your reasoning. These moments teach you that you are not in control, that your strength is borrowed, that your power is limited. And strangely, this realization does not weaken you. It softens you in a way that brings you into deeper alignment with Allah's will. It humbles you without humiliating you. It reminds you that everything you are capable of comes only through Him, that every breath, every step, every solution, and every moment of relief is a gift, not a guarantee. Humility born from hardship is one of the most beautiful forms of humility because it is honest. It comes from experience rather than theory. It comes from the heart rather than the mind. And patience is what allows that humility to settle into your soul with grace. Another transformation that patience creates is inner calm. At first, hardship shakes you. It disrupts your peace, stirs your fears, presses on your anxieties. But as you practice patience, as you lean into trust, as you continue to turn to Allah, even when you cannot see the way out, something shifts inside. You begin to settle. You begin to find calm, not because the situation has changed, but because your relationship with Allah has deepened. You begin to understand that tranquility does not come from control, it comes from surrender. It comes from knowing that Allah is the protector of your heart, the planner of your path, and the one who holds every outcome in his hands. This inner calm does not mean you feel no fear. It means fear no longer controls you. It means your heart becomes anchored, steady, grounded in reliance. You can stand in the middle of a storm and still feel a quietness inside you because the storm is outside, but Allah is within your heart. This transformation is one of the most powerful fruits of patience. It is the transformation from panic to presence, from anxiety to acceptance, from fear to faith, and it does not happen overnight. It happens through every prayer whispered in desperation, every tear shed in uncertainty, every moment of confusion surrendered to Allah. Slowly, your heart learns that safety does not come from understanding everything. It comes from trusting the one who understands everything. Patience also deepens gratitude. It may seem strange that difficulty can make you more grateful, but that is the paradoxical beauty of spiritual growth. When you practice patience, you begin to notice the small blessings you once overlooked. A moment of relief feels like a gift. A single answered prayer fills you with joy. A small act of kindness touches you deeply. Hardship sharpens your senses to the goodness around you, goodness that was always there, but often invisible when life was easy. Patience allows you to see that even within difficulty, there are blessings woven into every moment. You become grateful not only for what is pleasant, but for what is purifying. You begin to thank Allah not only for what He gives, but for what He protects you from. Gratitude becomes more sincere, more grounded, more meaningful. Another powerful transformation patience brings is spiritual clarity. When you go through hardship, life becomes stripped of distractions. You begin to see your values more clearly. You begin to understand what truly matters. The things that once consumed your energy, worries about other people's opinions, the pursuit of temporary achievements, the desire for constant validation, begin to fade in importance. Hardship refocuses your vision, pulling you away from the noise of the world and bringing you back to the simplicity of your relationship with Allah. You begin to see things in a different light, with more depth, with more awareness. Your priorities shift. Your intentions purify. Your heart becomes more aware of its own condition. You begin to see yourself with more honesty and see Allah with more reverence. This clarity is one of the most beautiful gifts patience brings. Patience also opens the heart to compassion. When you suffer, your heart softens toward others who suffer. You become more understanding, more gentle, more empathetic. You begin to recognize pain in the eyes of others that you previously overlooked. You become less judgmental because you realize how heavy life can be. You become more forgiving because you know what it feels like to need forgiveness yourself. You become more patient with others because you understand how much patience you need from Allah. Hardship deepens your humanity, and patience gives that humanity direction. It turns your personal pain into a source of compassion rather than bitterness. It allows you to become a source of comfort for others because your own suffering has carved space inside your heart for their suffering as well. Another transformation that patience creates is the strengthening of spiritual discipline. When you face difficulty, you are pushed to return to the foundations of faith: prayer, remembrance, dua, reflection. Hardship wakes up the soul from spiritual laziness. It brings urgency to your worship. You pray not out of routine, but out of need. You make dua not out of habit, but out of desperation. You remember Allah not because it is recommended, but because your heart feels empty without Him. This sincere return to worship strengthens your relationship with Him. It makes you more consistent, more conscious, more intentional. Patience teaches you that worship is not a burden, but a lifeline. It is the space where the heart heals, where strength is restored, where perspective shifts. And through consistent worship, the soul becomes more disciplined, more aware of Allah's presence, more rooted in faith. Patience also transforms your understanding of success. In the dunya, success is often measured by outcomes, achievements, or visible progress. But hardship shows you that spiritual success is measured differently. It is measured by how you respond, not what you receive. It is measured by the condition of your heart, not the condition of your circumstances. Through patience, you learn that success is in surrender, in perseverance, in trust. You begin to see that the true victory is not that the hardship goes away, but that your heart remains connected to Allah while the hardship lasts. This shift in perspective frees you from the pressure of obsessing over outcomes. You begin to understand that your job is effort and the outcome is Allah's domain. This understanding brings relief, release, and spiritual maturity. Patience also transforms the way you see yourself. Before hardship, you may have believed that you were fragile, that you could not endure certain challenges, that your heart would collapse under pressure. But through patience, you discover an unexpected strength within you, a strength that comes not from the self, but from Allah. You begin to see that you are capable of more resilience, more faith, more endurance than you imagined. You begin to understand that Allah has placed within you a capacity you had not yet tapped into. This realization increases your confidence, not in yourself alone, but in your ability to rise with Allah's help. It teaches you that you are never truly alone in your struggles, that divine support is always present, that strength is given exactly when it is needed. Patience transforms fear into hope. When you face a hardship, fear naturally arises. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of the unknown. But as you practice patience, as you rely on Allah, fear begins to shift into something softer. It begins to turn into hope. Hope that Allah will bring relief. Hope that better days are coming. Hope that your prayers are being heard. Hope that you are being prepared for something greater. This hope is not naive. It is rooted in faith. It is rooted in the promise that Allah never burdens a soul beyond what it can bear, that He is with the patient, that He brings ease after hardship. Hope becomes the light that guides you through the darkness, and patience is the oil that keeps that light burning. Patience also transforms suffering into meaning. When you endure hardship for the sake of Allah, when you choose to remain steadfast, when you choose to trust Him even when your heart trembles, your suffering becomes meaningful. It becomes a form of worship. It becomes a testimony of your faith. It becomes a source of spiritual elevation. Allah does not allow any hardship you bear with patience to go unrewarded. Every tear, every moment of silence, every hidden struggle, every private surrender is counted. It is preserved, it is honored. And in the unseen realm, your soul is being raised to heights you may not yet understand. Patience teaches the heart how to transform, how to soften without breaking, how to trust without seeing, how to love without clinging, how to hope without demanding, how to walk through darkness with faith that light exists, how to become who you were meant to be, by allowing Allah to write your story even when the ink feels heavy. Patience shapes the heart into a vessel capable of holding the weight of faith, the beauty of reliance, the depth of gratitude, and the strength of surrender. It turns difficulty into a sacred journey and the soul into a garden where resilience, humility, trust, and love grow quietly, beautifully, and eternally.